Welcome to the Morning Nerdy News. I'm your host, Gray Falcon. We have lots of updates to come today. Information in regards to PlayStation 5, the pre-order date for the Xbox Series S and X, Cyberpunk news, Nvidia 380 news, and more. All today here on the Morning Nerdy News. Starting off, we're going to go into TikTok news. So the U.S. Department of Commerce this morning released a statement saying that TikTok and WeChat are going to be ended. So this doesn't say that they're going to end services on the devices. We don't have specific clarity on that from this. But as of Sunday, the 20th, per President Trump's executive order that happened back on August 6th, they will no longer be sold on app stores. Now, this is going to pretty much completely stop WeChat, which is used for business and a lot in China and for any type of communication between U.S. companies and Chinese companies. So this could potentially hurt businesses. And on the TikTok side, TikTok has a little more leeway. While the downloads have been stopped, they have been given until November 12th to prove that they're able to have all their security leaks and their algorithm, everything proven that they're not going to cause any problems. Now, this doesn't mean that if they do show this, that it is going to go back up, because the president's concern with everything that's going on with TikTok, with the access that it has, and other government officials still having issues with this service being able to potentially track and have the Chinese government say, hey, we want that information, you have to give it to us. We don't know if that'll be resolved. Now, the whole deal with Oracle gaining the access to international rights, they may be able to show that if Oracle has control of the U.S. content and what's delivered, and Oracle can tell the Chinese government, no, you're not getting this because this comes through us, that may resolve issues. That's yet to be seen. But as of right now, TikTok will not be available to download after Sunday, or starting on Sunday. I'm not entirely sure which one that's going to be. It just says as of September 20th, the following transactions will be prohibited. So I'm guessing that is on September 20th, it will no longer be available. So tomorrow would be the last day based on how that statement reads. And moving along, I wanted to cover that first, but we have other news in video gaming. So Nintendo had a couple of directs, basically kind of a direct mini and partner showcase. And in this, they had a bunch of games that they showed off. And I'm just going to scroll through. IGN has a list of all these games. A couple of Monster Hunter games were announced. Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2. And Ori is going to be headed over to the Switch, so the Xbox exclusive is going to get its opportunity to have this game sold on another platform. I wouldn't expect this to come over to PlayStation, given that Xbox really sees them as a direct competitor, where Nintendo is more of a supporting device. It's one of those things where PlayStation and Xbox can argue all day long, but everyone's happy with Nintendo. And that includes Xbox, apparently. They introduced Fitness Boxing 2, so surprising that this game did well enough to actually get a sequel, but if you enjoyed the exercise rhythm game from the first time through, you might be happy to know that you're going to get another one and hopefully get some more songs, maybe some better controls with it. And yeah, good news for those wanting to keep in shape and don't want to have to go in and get Apple's fitness app. And just several other games that were announced here. You can scroll through. If you want to head over to IGN, you can read through all of these. But yeah, just a lot of games announced, including things like Sniper Elite 4. So check that out. And in other gaming news, Cyberpunk has announced that today, noon Eastern, 6 p.m. CEST, at Twitch, they are going to have their third episode of Night City Wire. So make sure you head over, check this out. It looks like this one is going to be focused on the gangs. If you scroll through here, the little video that they do is just all these little different gangs and their images. So I would expect a lot of detail on all of these different groups. And There's a lot of them. They all have very different personalities from what we've heard within this game, so I'm excited about that. And Cyberpunk also announced some hardware news, stating that the Xbox One series and the Xbox One and PS4 versions are going to also function on the PS5 and Series X. They don't mention the Series S in this, which is interesting. That could be just an oversight or something else, but they will have advanced versions that come out to play on the new gen systems, at least for the PS5 and Series X, that will take advantage of those enhancements, but they aren't going to be at launch. They are going to be an after launch thing, but you'll still be able to put your game into the new systems if you have them and start playing from there. So that is a nice bonus. And if you're wondering, the little information is right here about taking full advantage of next-gen hardware will be available for free. But yeah, it does say a later upgrade. So that's awesome news. And speaking of Xbox and its a release, they have announced that pre-orders are coming September 22nd. So that's next week on Tuesday. You'll be able to go in and get that information, and this will be a lot nicer than what PlayStation's was, because they've actually given a specific time for when this is going to happen. So 8 a.m. Pacific, that should be 11 o'clock Eastern time, that you'll be able to get in and make those pre-orders. So they said we want to make sure everyone's at work before we launch this, so good luck. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm glad to see that they are finally doing this, and PlayStation's announcement for its price, and then how they did the pricing, well, not the pricing, the release to pre-order were ridiculous and confusing. But we'll get into that a little bit more here later on. But speaking of PlayStation, the CEO Jim Ryan of PlayStation US came out, or I'm sorry, President, PlayStation's Jim Ryan, came out and talked about a lot of the AAA games that are coming out, how we're going to have those games from the collection come over and we'll have access to all of those. And it goes into new detail in here, talking about how we looked we looked at it two ways. We have PS4 community, which is going to be incredibly important for us for many years to come, Ryan says. It will be tens of millions strong, and we've never been closer to them than this year. I'm thrilled that Worldwide Studios has been able to provide for the community, and what, for us, in year 7 has been comfortably the best ever lineup of exclusive PlayStation games in any generation we've done. And we'd submit that it's arguably the best year 7 lineup of exclusives from any platform. So just talking about the games coming out and that have come out this year, that's Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2, and then we have Miles Morales coming out here in a couple of months, but that one I believe is exclusive to the PS5. And he just goes over all these games and how incredible they feel that their launch lineup has been, and how PlayStation 5 will take advantage of and do enhancements for some of these games in the next gen. But he also goes in and talks about how they aren't going to go into the launch date subscription model for PlayStation games. And he says that it just doesn't really fit their theme. They create so many games, and all these games have a budget over $100 million. And it's just not long-term sustainable for them to give away these games in a subscription model when they have to pump so much money into them. And they want these games to be high tier. They want these games to be things that you go in and you're like, wow, I have to buy a system in order to play these. I want to enjoy these incredible experiences that I can only get on PlayStation. So don't expect the collection to be an indicator that you're going to get a whole bunch of these games for free day and date launch with the PlayStation 5 the way you do with Xbox on their Game Pass. But that said, PlayStation Plus has regularly released their games years later. So you might get a game that came out a year or two later that was exclusive and be able to enjoy that through PlayStation Plus. And in some cases, it's faster than that. There are a few of the games that are critical hits, but they don't have the sales numbers. So something that's really good, but they want to get it out there that this is on PlayStation, those will come out a little bit sooner. Sometimes you'll see those pop up after about a year over onto PlayStation Plus. So if you're patient with it, you'll still get the games without having to pay for them if you're a PlayStation Plus member, but it's not day and date like you're getting with the Xbox. But there's so many exclusives. They say we can't just give away all of these. When you come out and you have 2, 3, 4 exclusives come out in a year, you can't afford to just give all those away. We have to get paid for those, and I can understand that. I can understand that perspective, and the fact that you can still get them if you're patient makes me happy about that. And he also talks about things over on Washington Post, where CEO Jim Ryan says more about the PlayStation 5 units and how there will be more available than there were for the PS4 back in 2013 for the release. So they expect to have a large availability. He said that there was concern about it earlier on in the year, that with everything going on, that he wasn't sure how things were going to fall, and they were concerned about how many to produce, whether or not people would still be stuck inside, if they could even go to retailers to purchase systems. So early on in the year, there was a discussion about that, but that has kind of all been resolved, and as time went by, they knew later on this year that no, we do need to have production ramped up. We do need to be able to have enough of these to go out. It also states that that the price was determined early in this year, that they already knew that they were going to have a version of the PS4 that was going to be the same price as the launch of, a PS5 that was going to be the same price as the PS4's launch, which, as we know now, is the PlayStation 4 Digital. I'd take that one with a grain of salt. If they actually knew this information, why did they wait so long to hold on to it? I suppose it's possible that they just didn't want to risk Microsoft deciding to undercut them on price, but it just seems a little fishy. It doesn't seem quite on par. They may have had several price settings for this that they were comfortable with going, and they were simply waiting on Microsoft to decide which ones they wanted to use. So yes, it's possible back in the spring that they did have this price pre-chosen, but they probably had several prices pre-selected, and they just were going to adjust based off of what Microsoft came out and said in order to give that information. We'll see. And back over to the pre-order information with the PlayStation 5, it was a complete disaster. So they had their showcase. You went through, you watched that, and all of a sudden you went from getting a price to wondering, well, when can I get it? Are you going to give me that information? Because it's very common for PlayStation to say, here's the price and you can get it right now. And they didn't do that. No big announcement during that. So after the show, we ended up getting just a tweet from them that said, by the way, you can get this tomorrow, which was yesterday. And so I went out and looked in a bunch of other places. I went up on Amazon, and at midnight, Amazon wasn't available. Kept refreshing, wasn't available. Well, so I went over and checked out other sites, and Best Buy had it go up, and they had it up for a little bit longer than I would have expected, but people were having the system removed from their cart. They couldn't actually get it to click through and purchase, which is why it stayed up on their site a little bit longer, because people simply couldn't get the product to be purchased, and that caused problems with people trying to get it and had it in their cart. They were about to click through to purchase, and then it disappears. They go back, it says it's still available. And that just caused a disaster there. And then over on other websites, it sold out in seconds. Like, we're talking, you get 30 seconds in and all of a sudden the entire stock was gone. So very frustrating launch, very consistent on information that was coming out, and no one was pleased with how it was done. And then Walmart last night came out and said, oh, in an hour, we're going to have more of our systems available for pre-order. So I'm guessing Sony decided, okay, we're going to reallocate some more. We're going to tell Walmart, hey, we've got some extra. We're going to toss them your way in order for them to go up. And I managed to get mine, but I had the same issue that happened with Best Buy's website on that one, where I went through, had it in the cart, pushed it through and said, this item's no longer available. And I go back and my other screen said it was still in my cart. So I tried to purchase it again and again because it kept doing that. And third, fourth, fifth try, something like that, I finally got it to go through. So same issue where whatever reason the system was saying it's not there, it's not there, it's not there, and then I got lucky enough to purchase it. My brother, on the other hand, got all the way through and was on the purchase screen, clicked purchase, and then it said no longer available. And he had to do the exact same thing to even get to the screen where he was checking out with his card. And both of us, I believe, already have accounts, so we were able to just go straight through without having to add information in. But I got lucky enough for it to go through and he didn't. So very frustrating on that end for a lot of buyers still, because everyone's swarming to get these and we just can't get them the way we want to. You can't go into a store and pre-order. Yesterday morning, I went and checked with Best Buy. Best Buy said that they were doing no pre-orders in store, that it had to be online. Then I checked with GameStop, and GameStop said the same thing. So a lot of these, I called Target as well. Target said, no, our pre-orders are only online. That didn't surprise me because Target's been that way for a while now. But Best Buy and GameStop typically allow in-store pre-orders, and they just weren't there. So this is something that's getting frustrating for the consumer, especially consumers who don't want to try and hit up a midnight release. They have work, they're purchasing this for a kid or something, or things happen where most people are sleeping at the time that these things are being announced and launched. And when you don't give clear indication of what's going on with it, and then Sony probably didn't give a clear amount to all of these retailers on how many they were going to get, so they limited how much product they actually made available to consumers, and it just leads to an overall frustrating situation. And speaking of frustrating situations, the 3080 was also a mess. So on Engadget, they cover this as well, where on the morning after with the PS5 and RTX 3080 rollouts, frustrating for all gamers. And I've already covered the PlayStation 5 part of this, but I was also trying to get a 3080, and there was a little bit more clarity, although it wasn't easy to find all the information on when it was going to be announced. Nvidia did end up giving information saying, hey, yes, this is coming the 17th, but we're not opening up sales until 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific time to purchase these. So we have people everywhere waiting in order to get this. So I'm over here. I had Nvidia's website pulled up. I had Amazon. I had Best Buy. I had Newegg. I had all these different locations. I don't typically purchase from Newegg because I don't like to pay for shipping on things when I have so many other options that give me free shipping. So they were kind of a last resort for me anyways. But Best Buy, I went on there. I had it in my cart, and the same thing with the PlayStation 5. I couldn't get it to process through to the purchase. It would say it was there, and then it would disappear from my cart magically. I'd go back out. It would say it's still available to purchase, so I'd click on it again. It'd go in my cart, and once I got to the purchase section, it was gone again. And this happened with 3 different cards that were listed on their website, and I could not get any of them because of this. And it just shows me that there's a problem with Best Buy's website, especially with trying to make purchases at launch. If their site cannot handle information going from cart to verifying inventory to purchase, all within the first few seconds of something being launched. So I ended up missing out on Best Buy there. And as I said, I contacted the store. 0 in store. The store said that they weren't getting them, that they didn't think any stores were getting them, and I heard from lots of other people that their Best Buy stores did not get them in from across the country, all because Best Buy said, well, if our sales are doing so well online, we're not going to bother to give them to our stores, which inappropriate, I think. I feel like if you are a big box location, that you should provide your stores with some cards. You should not put it in a situation where only online people have access to it, but they're like, it sells so well on there, why would we bother shipping it to our stores when we can ship it directly to the customer? Which kind of makes sense, but it's, again, very irritating for the consumer. So Amazon, I checked all day, and I never even saw it become available on Amazon. I'll tell you what, refreshing all day, having the multiple screens up and checking, and Amazon cards never once appeared as in stock for me. And I don't know if that's true for anyone else, if they were able to actually purchase it on Amazon. If you were, shoot me a message, put it in the comments later on over on YouTube. But nothing. And then Engadget, they had cards. Or not Engadget, I'm sorry. Then Newegg, they did have cards. But by the time I was actually willing to go over there and make purchases, they were sold out. And, that's my fault for not wanting to pay the $7 shipping to begin with. But there we have it. But in other RTX 3080 news, we did find out that the card is very overclockable. That it can be overclocked to 2340 megahertz, so 2340 megahertz. And this was achieved in 3D Mark x SPI. And this would be with a world record of over 10,000 points. So this card is fast. It is powerful. Now, they show this card for the Founders Edition here. This was not what was used in these. They used third-party cards. So one of them was the MSI art version of it. And I don't believe they actually show the other card here. But yeah, one of them was the MSI version of the card, which has the traditional cooler on it. The cooler for the Founders Edition does work really well, but it has been found that the overclocking on that one is not as high, where you'll see the MSI one has 3 8-pin plugs, so it gets higher power allocation to it, where the Founders Edition doesn't have that extra power allotment to it to get those types of overclocks. But in this article on Wccftech, they do talk about how none of this even touched for overclocking the memory in the card. This was all just based on overclocking the actual GPU. So that is a good sign that we will potentially see this card get overclocked even higher. But it has been confirmed by Gigabyte that there are going to be the 20 gig 3080 cards coming out, as well as the RTX 3070 16 gigabit cards and the 8 gigabit for the 3060. So it may be a good thing that you haven't purchased it yet if you did not manage to actually acquire one of these, because if you have a little bit extra cash, the idea of the 20 gigabit version coming out just a couple of months afterwards, simply to wait on what AMD does, is probably what's happening here. But yeah, Gigabit already has these advanced cards in their system. It's already expected that these cards are going to be coming out. So they have a little S next to them, so it's presumed that that's going to refer to Super, but this is just more confirmation that these special higher end versions of the cards are coming out, and probably coming out soon. So if you rushed out to purchase it and you accomplished it, if you needed a graphics card, kind of like where I'm in the boat where I could really use an upgrade to my graphics card, the 3080 is probably still great, but we run the risk of that price either dropping, or for just a little bit extra cash getting a better version. So we'll find out on that one later on this year. Again, I appreciate everyone hanging out with me today. Remember to click follow if you haven't already. If you're over on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. And over on Twitter, make sure you click the follow button there as well, where you'll get news updates throughout the day. Any information that comes out, I normally post up on there first. And thanks for hanging out. I will see you next time.